Hey yo, how is everybody doing today? I need to put my banner up. Sorry, I was doing an interview last week with some founders. There we go. How's everybody doing today? Bitcoin hit an all-time high, a new all-time high. Seems to be a trend. I don't know about you guys, but I woke up last night. I was like, oh my goodness, 123K. Kidding me? We have a lot to cover, guys. Obviously, there's a lot going on in the crypto space. We're going to talk about whether or not retail is back. We've got some theories on that. Retail is getting drunk on the beach. Not so sure retail's back yet, guys. Big question is, are they going to come back? And what type of alt season could we see? There's a lot of people now. It's amazing the amount of bull posting taking place after the last 6 months. These people were calling for an end of crypto. Altcoins are dead forever. And now everyone's talking about, you got to get your 50 and 100Xs. It changes so quickly, guys. You know what? It's important to be consistent. It's important to also be realistic. Okay, so we're going to talk about everything that's going on right now because, yes, there's a lot of reasons to be excited, but as always, there's a lot that's happening beneath the surface of the economy. It's a little concerning. So I think it's important to have a plan in place. We're going to talk a little bit about what that could look like. But anyway, Crypto Week is underway. There's a few bills that are up to be voted on this week, one of which is very likely to get passed. That's tomorrow. A couple others may or may not. We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But certainly plenty of tailwinds, guys. Plenty of tailwinds. Let's see here. And then I've got a lot of spaces I'm going to be on this week. I'm going to share all those. So hopefully if you guys can make some of those, set some reminders. We got some special guests coming on. A lot of stuff happening this week. Very, very busy week. But perfect timing, guys. Let's talk about some technological advancements to kick things off as people filter in. The first is about the Tesla robot. So this is V2, and Elon came out and said, just wait until V3 comes out. But replacing humans for tasks here. I'm just going to turn that volume off. So they've got, your robots taking out the trash. They got them like cutting vegetables, all types of stuff. And this is V2. Like, just wait till V3. That's good. That way people can be lazier. Although I have to say, there's something to be said about freeing up your time from doing those types of tasks to doing things that are more efficient and more useful with your time. I don't know if I would trust a robot to cook for me. I don't know if you were here last week. I was talking about that robot that was blackmailing the person that was threatening to shut it down in that test. I don't know if I want a robot cooking for me. So V3 is coming, guys. Robots are going to be real, not just in this sense, in building buildings, construction work, all types of stuff. But it's not just robots. Last week I covered the robot that completed a surgery. Well, now they've got robots that are drawing blood. Pretty wild stuff there. So I guess it's able to find your vein there and then take your blood. You also have robots that are washing windows on buildings, drones. I used to work in the drone service space. Crazy stuff there. Crazy stuff. And you have people working in construction remotely.
Correct. Bring the beat back. Bounce that ass, girl, shake that ass.
I don't know why they chose that song for that video. It doesn't seem to match. But how wild is this? They're operating from air-conditioned areas remotely to construction work. Unreal, man. Unreal. It's coming, guys. It is all coming. And lastly, Grok can now sing.
Hey, Grok, can you see my my kitchen or my dining area?
Hey, yeah, I can see your dining area. Looks like a nice setup with a wooden table, yellow chairs, and some cool plants. Very cozy.
Sweet. Sing a song about my dining area.
All right. Oh, dining area so fine. With a wooden
I don't think she's going to
table
win any
that
Grammys anytime soon,
yellow
but
chairs so bright. Plants that
Interesting
Light,
feature.
cozy vibes all day in your home, so gay.
What?
Have that?
Just called my home gay. That's pretty good.
Sure thing, home. I'll stick with that from now on. Glad you liked the song.
No, don't stick to calling me gay.
Anyway, fun stuff there, guys. Plenty of advancements on the tech side of things. But over the weekend, we had some wild stuff. Trump went full Trump mode and started talking about how the pardons for January 6th committee are void because of the auto pin. The auto pin is rearing its ugly head again. And it says the late night social media post. There's a couple of those this weekend, guys. Trump went a little unhinged. He talked about how, without any evidence, it says President Joe Biden used an auto pen to sign the pardons, and so he considered them void, vacant, and of no further force or effect. Well, is there any legitimacy to this? You know, the question at hand and the claims right now are saying that Biden did not closely review every case, including in his sweeping end-of-term clemency spree, and instead delegated a vast majority to aides to handle the process, including the chief of staff. There's a lot of people, they're saying, that are falling under this. Who else was it? Fauci was on there. And if you remember, this didn't really get in the news much for whatever reason, but there's the former top aide to Biden testified on this just a couple weeks ago and said that she was authorized to direct auto pen signatures, but was unaware of who in the president's inner circle was giving her final clearance. Okay. And that's it. She said from 21 to 23, she was authorized to direct auto pen signatures on behalf of Biden. So this was under oath, she testified. So I don't know. We'll see what comes of this. But the other thing, Trump went completely unhinged, guys. Like this tweet was just crazy. I think he's having a really hard time with the Epstein stuff. Like, people have been very, very pissed. I mean, one of the things he campaigned on was transparency, and it would appear that he's trying to shut this thing down, and people are not ready for it to be shut down. And then this time, after saying that the files don't exist or the list doesn't exist, he came out and said that Obama, Hillary, Comey created the documents. Then he goes on to talk about the Russia hoax, the laptop from hell, et cetera, the fake Hillary Christopher Steele dossier, which he might actually have a point on that one. But either way, just goes on and on and on, talks about how Pam Bondi is doing a great job. Of course, this weekend, there were reports that came out that people in the inner circle, Pam Bondi, and some of the other people in Trump's staff were going at it. And, there's a lot of calls for Pam Bondi to step down. Either way, it's pretty ugly stuff. And then after all that, looks like Ghislaine Maxwell said that she's willing to testify before Congress and reveal the details of Epstein's trafficking ring. So, wow. There's a lot of CEOs, politicians, academics, Hollywood notables. There's a lot of people on that list, and it has to make you wonder, why is it being covered up by everybody, right? And that would be pretty wild. And the fact that she's coming out and saying that, that's pretty crazy, because we all know what happened to Epstein, whether or not how it happened. I don't know that I would be wanting to play with fire if I were her, but sounds like she might. So that's what's going on in the global news, guys. Let's get into the finance stuff. There's a lot happening. Number one, Tesla, the robo-taxi, an autonomous taxi fight is on. You have Waymo that's expanded into New York City. You've got the robo-taxi. Pretty interesting stuff with the robo-taxi, by the way. It doesn't have LiDAR equipped, but it used LiDAR to train its models. I actually just finished editing on Friday. My interview with the Rover team. I'm waiting for the green light. I'm hoping to get that posted probably today or tomorrow, so you guys will be able to watch that. But they expanded their geofenced area for the robo-taxi. Very interesting geofencing there by Elon. So ridiculous. He's so ridiculous. But this is a really interesting clip. Kind of opens your eyes to what he's thinking about.
Why doesn't Tesla buy Uber? There's no need because we have a large number of cars. We have millions of cars that will be able to operate autonomously, and I should say that it's a combination of a Tesla-owned fleet and also enabling Tesla owners to be able to to add or subtract their car to the fleet, so that existing Tesla owners will be able to earn money by adding their car to the fleet for autonomous use. And I think it's maybe possible for Tesla owners to make more in allowing their car to be added to
used, which you discussed,
the self-driving fleet, that then they cost them in the lease.
Right.
And that's why I'd say consider it sort of a business model that's similar to some combination of Airbnb and Uber. Just like Airbnb, you can rent out your spare bedroom or your house if you're not using it, and make money on it. And
can you imagine? That is wild. Like, if you lease a Tesla and then when you're not using it, you send it out to go drive people around, and it can more than potentially cover the cost of your lease. That's mind blowing, and it's brilliant. And if I were Uber, I would be a little bit concerned. I'm not gonna lie. That is what's coming, guys. That's what's coming, and I think a lot of people are really sleeping on Tesla. But the robo taxis, the autonomous taxis, it's a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity. Kathy Wood talks about it a lot. I think she is right. She's not always right, but I think on that one, she has a fair point. In other news, this came out from Fortune, talking about how Gen Alpha. So we're on to Gen Alpha now. They said that 75% of employees are now employers are using personality and skill tests in hiring. And Gen Alpha may never need to write a resume. Goes on to say that by the time Gen Alpha becomes old enough to work, they might be picking up personality tests instead of handing over their resumes. The findings are that personality and skill tests may even take over traditional ways of screening, with bosses already admitting they prefer the newer tools. 71% of employers agree that testing is more productive of on-the-job success compared to resumes. Yeah, no kidding. About 65% have agreed that the workers hired using skill tests stay longer. So yeah, the employment and the hiring process is going to change. It needs to change, honestly. Like, the days of having to fill out your resume, change your cover letters, apply to 1 million jobs, and they have 1,000 different applications to sort through. Like, I've always thought a resume really doesn't do a great job, and people can lie on their resume anyway. I think it does make sense to shift the way that works. The other thing is coffee is about to get more expensive. So there's a couple of reasons. A lot of people are saying it was tariffs, because we did just threaten 50% tariffs on Brazil. That's part of it. Another thing is that there's been excessive dryness in Brazil, which is, they said they have had no rain during the week that ended July 12th, but it is a very large coffee growing area. It also says that the tariffs did have something to do with that. 50% tariffs being threatened on Brazil on August 1st. That's just one of many tariffs, though, guys. Over the weekend, this is just yesterday, I believe, Trump threatened Russia with 100% secondary tariffs if the Ukraine ceasefire deal isn't reached. So he's growing impatient. Just last week, we covered it too. They are, oh man, let's see. So they are going to be shipping more weapons to Ukraine. We already have a lot of sanctions on Russia, so we'll see if anything comes of that or not. But then the big news, of course, looking at the tariffs, and I think we all knew Trump has a way of doing this. As soon as the markets close, he likes to announce new tariffs. Canada, EU, and Mexico. So Canada and Mexico are really important. They're our two largest trade partners now, above China. And he's threatening now 30 and 35% tariffs. He's also saying that the blanket tariffs for most trading partners could go to 15 to 20% instead of 10% level that's currently in effect. So, oh man. You know what's interesting though? The market, I don't think is taking this seriously anymore. We talked about this last week that my hope, based on things that Scott Besson has said, I hope that we land on 10%. But these things do have an impact on markets, and we're going to talk more about that in a minute when we get into the crypto news and some of the things that have been cited. But here's the deal, guys. When we look at the 30-year Treasury, it's climbing back up again. I think a lot of this is based on concerns about inflation. Jerome Powell's hands are going to be a little bit tied. Everyone's pushing on him to cut rates, but now, on one end, yeah, he wants to cut rates. He came out 2 weeks ago and said, hey, I would cut rates if it weren't for the tariffs. And then now you have Trump coming out and, when we are hoping to have some certainty and saying, hey, in 3 weeks, we may or may not have tariffs that are 3 times what they currently are. So what the hell do you even do with that? You can't do anything with it. I was on a golf trip this weekend and I was talking to my buddy who's working for an investment banker firm, and they're growing increasingly frustrated because, for them, rates have a huge impact on how much businesses sell for. And they're like, dude, this back and forth, the tariff situation, this is just getting out of control. When you look at the 10-year and in particular the 30-year on Japan, though, and this is the one that people aren't talking about, you're starting to see some people. This is a problem. Okay, this is a big, big problem. Japan's 30-year Treasury rate is climbing. If you look at what happened last August, the reverse carry trade started to unwind. Essentially, for the better part of a decade or longer at this point, Japan has kept their yield really low. What they've done is the Bank of Japan has purchased their own debt. It's caused inflation for them, but it suppressed this rate. People from all over the world and in other markets were going and borrowing yen because they could get it really, really cheap. And then they were moving it into other currencies. So then they're taking the loan that they got in the yen, moving into US dollars, investing in the stock market, investing in real estate. The problem is now this yield curve is moving up. And now the people are going to have to be faced with the decision. We saw this last August, where they might have to sell off their stock. They might have to sell off their real estate assets in order to cover this, because now it's a losing proposition the more this rate goes up. And that is what causes the unwinding. And this is a real threat, guys. This is something that you're probably going to see a lot more people talk about. And this is when you say, Japan is a big problem. And I 100% agree. So we need to be aware of all the risks that are out there, because otherwise there's no way to manage risk if you're not aware of it. Okay, Dow Jones, though, started the day down a little bit. It's down very, very little. It was down to start the day. It's back up now. As you can see, the market is more or less unbothered right now, at least, by the tariff situation. We have until August 1st, so now that's only 2 weeks from now to see what comes of this. Let's hope that something gets done here. I'm going to ask, is this the big summer dip we're looking for? I mean, it depends what you're talking about here, because altcoins haven't really run. We have some of the bigger caps that have. We've seen nothing but dips this year. Now, Bitcoin, on the other hand, or the traditional stock market, I think it's coming. I don't know when. That's the big question is how long can the market stay irrational? And I think that's what we're at right now. I think the market is being irrational. So I'm going to talk about a few things in the news and why I believe that, and where I think the play could be. There are some reports that came out, by the way, on Friday, I believe it was, that Jerome Powell is considering resigning. I don't believe that. I just don't believe it. It's this guy Pulte that came out with this. And I think he was basing it off reports he probably read on X. Jerome Powell, when asked about stepping down, every single time has said that he won't. So we haven't heard anything from him that would suggest that would even be a thing. So why? I don't understand why people are running with this. Obviously that the big thing around that is okay, maybe if he gets replaced, we'll have somebody in there that cut rates a bunch. We stay up to date on this right now. There's likely very, very likely no rate cut coming in 2 weeks, July 30th. Then the next session is September 17th. It is looking, wow. This was at 55, 56% last week. So this is even dropping now. We're down to a 50-50 chance of a rate cut in September. So that shifted quite a bit, and a 60% in October. So things are starting to move. People are starting to move towards less rate cuts this year. A lot of that is probably coming from the tariff situation and the uncertainty that Trump continues to cause in markets. And here's the issue, guys. And people can talk about how strong the labor market is. They can talk about how strong the economy is. And I don't think it's true. I think there's a lot more happening than people realize. Companies are starting to lay people off. In particular, we had this trucking manufacturer. The reason they cited, it's a challenging economic environment. We've seen a slowdown in new truck orders. Okay, that's not good. Okay, that if there's there's less demand for truck orders, that means that there's less products being shipped. Guys, that is about consumer sentiment. We're going to talk more about that. There's another announcement of layoffs, this coming from Rivian, which sucks. So I love my Rivian. But there is an article that came out. They try to rationalize it. They do have $1 billion from Volkswagen that's coming in to give them some more runway. But, of course, Trump is threatening EVs. So who knows what's going to happen? I mean, it was 150 workers. So not a huge cut. Actually, I think they upped that from 150. But still, we are seeing the layoffs. But here's, to me, is the bigger issue, guys. This is the student loan delinquencies. Okay. Orange is 2025. Blue is 2020. In almost every category, delinquencies are on the rise with student loans. Okay. You're going to start seeing people's wages garnished. That impacts consumer spending. More concerning than that is credit card delinquencies. Like this is a really big deal, guys. The reason why consumer spending has been able to stay strong is because people have been putting it on credit cards. And unlike the US government that can just print money whenever the hell it wants, people have credit card limits. And now we're starting to see them hit those limits, and now they're not even paying it off, right? They're going past due. Oh, man. Don't worry. He said his wife will support the transportation sector of their Amazon orders. God, I bet you're not alone there, buddy. That's funny. But guys, like these are the signs you have to look for, because yes, markets can stay irrational. We talked about this, how the top 10% owns 88% of the stock market. The bottom 50% are in debt. But like if consumer spending drops off a cliff and we start to see the music stop, guys, that flows through to stocks. People get worried. People get scared. They sell off. It causes major sell-offs. And that is what I think is going to come. It's just a matter of when. And I think this is a really good take here. Before we move into the crypto news, looking at commodities. We've talked a lot about commodities. I'm gonna spend a lot more time in the next couple of weeks covering commodities in the macro section, because I do believe, in Sistine, this guy's really smart. He's talking about the 45-year cup and handle on silver. We've talked about silver. We've talked about gold. We've talked about copper. We've talked about, playing the nuclear side of things with uranium. Silver is set up to have a massive run. And he says here, the generational trade is to rotate crypto into silver after crypto runs. And I think he's right. I think commodities are set to have a massive run. And I think when the market does drop out, it could be a really good play. And that's why it's going to be really important to manage risk on the way up here, because there are a lot of things happening. Japan, the tariffs, you've got Ukraine, Russia. I mean, you've got the economy underneath it all breaking, the money printing. I mean, it's all, there's just so much uncertainty. Now, what we don't know is what's going to happen, if and when the market does drop out. If there's any recency bias, we would think, okay, the Fed's going to drop rates like crazy. It's going to, start QE and save the market, so we have a V-shaped recovery. I mean, that's what we would have to assume will happen, but we don't know. But what I do know is that when it does happen, I don't want to be overexposed, and I want to have plenty of cash on the sideline to be ready for it and have a game plan in place. That's why it's important to cover that stuff. But it's also important to cover the fun stuff, guys. And that's the crypto side of things. The crypto market is going bananas. Last night, guys, Bitcoin got up to $123,000. Well, we got Bitcoin up. Let's talk about this. Which side of the risk curve will Bitcoin be on? You know, some of the stuff I'm about to talk about, I think, feeds into this question. It's a good question. Guys, we broke above to 123. We're back. We're coming back down. I mean, this was such a parabolic run. I think it was to be expected. We kept talking about this consolidation in this range that just seemed to be lasting forever. We needed to break out at some point. There's so much purchasing taking place, and it got to the point, by the way, last night, before I move on to address that question, we passed Amazon. Bitcoin passed Amazon. It is now back below. If you look at the real-time chart here, but pretty remarkable stuff. Obviously, gold sitting at 22.5 trillion. We are at 2.38 trillion down here at Bitcoin. But let's talk about what led to this. Okay, so we're starting to see it in the major media, right? This is what tends to happen at this time in the market cycle. So it talks about how it's hitting 120,000. And U.S. lawmakers begin crypto week. We're going to talk about what crypto week is and what bills in particular are on the table. But I think this is a really important context. And this is stuff we've been talking about, that we've been drawing conclusions on for some time. We're on here every day. But he says, we believe that Bitcoin surge is driven by longer-term institutional buyers, and this will propel to 125K in the next month or two. Okay, so institutional buyers. We've talked about this a lot. We talked about it on my weekly spaces too. A lot of them are more likely to be longer term holders. I think we're going to see a little bit less of people trading on leverage, trading Bitcoin into altcoins. And I think this has been institutionally led for sure. So to answer your question, I think that feeds into this. Will it be a risk off, like commodities? I think we're at this really weird inflection point for Bitcoin, where we have longer term holders been changing hands to, longer term and that have held it for a long time up to this point, that are in some major profits. I think we've seen this over the last few months of changing of hands from those longer term holders into institutional buyers. And I think the institutional buyers are likely looking at it as a hedge against inflation, to be risk off, a hedge against the US dollar and fiat currencies in general. So I think you're seeing that the holders are shifting that direction, but I still think you have a lot of holders that are looking to, more speculatively invest with the goal of taking profits. So I think it's less risk on than it ever has been, but I still think we're caught in the middle. I don't think we're there yet. And it's going to be very telling what happens when we start to see corrections in the market, what happens to Bitcoin. If there's any indication, though, what we saw, earlier this year with the tariff scare, the stock market dropped like crazy. Bitcoin had a correction, but not nearly what it would have in years past, in my opinion, not nearly as sharp. So I think that is a sign that we are starting to see people treat it as a risk off to an extent. Now, it talks about the threats, stuff we've been talking about a lot, but Trump's trade disputes, the likes of EU, Mexico, and other trading partners could cause dips in the week ahead. But it's likely that Bitcoin's institutional buyers are discounting this risk and maintaining their positions that Bitcoin will still appreciate in the long run, keyword being long run there. Okay, so institutional buyers have a longer term view than what we're used to with Bitcoin. I think it also, though, will have an impact on alt season, because you're not going to have as many people that are looking to move profits from Bitcoin into alts. And I don't think we're going to see that huge drop off in Bitcoin dominance like we've seen in the past. Okay, so all important context. And I agree with the trade situation, but here again, it does say, like what we just talked about, they are discounting the risk of the tariffs. They obviously at this point do not expect August 1st for these tariffs to go in effect as they stand right now in these letters. If it does happen, there's going to be a massive sell-off, because the market is not baking that in. The market is discounting that risk for sure, without a doubt. Okay, crypto week, guys. There are 3 bills. You have the Clarity Act, the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, and the Genius Act. So I think this article does a really good job of highlighting what each one of these bills is looking to do. Number one is the Genius Act. We talked about this a lot. This is the stablecoin bill. this is expected to pass. By the way, it's being voted on tomorrow, Tuesday, and it said it could find its way to Trump as early as tomorrow. This got passed on June 17th. Originally, it got shot down. They had to go back and change some things, and it got passed to move on. So this is big news. For one, this is expected to bring in trillions of dollars on chain. The other thing is that it's going to be really big in stabilizing the U.S. dollar because the stablecoin issuers are expected to purchase multiple trillions of dollars worth of our debt, which is really important right now. So this is a big deal, and I think that's a big reason why it's getting such support from both ends of the aisle, because it is needed to back or to stabilize the U.S. dollar. Now, this one, the Clarity Act, this one is less likely to get passed. Okay. But this is a big deal too, because it's going to talk about, it's not talking about stablecoins. It's talking about other crypto projects and whether the SEC will have control over it or the Commodities Futures Trading Commission, and whether those digital assets fall under, or which organization those digital assets fall under. Okay, so it says that it defines digital commodities as digital assets whose value is tied to the use of blockchain. Those will fall under the CFTC. And then it says digital assets sold to investors as securities will be regulated by the SEC. So this is a really big deal. It goes on to say, though, that the Republicans may face an uphill battle in getting over the 60 vote threshold from Democrats, likely because they're highly skeptical due to Trump's family involvement in crypto. We talked about how there are some serious tailwinds from Trump being involved in crypto, but there's also some threats because there's been a lot of talk about how much money his family is making off of crypto. It could hold this bill back, okay? Because there's been a lot of talk from the Democratic side about the ties that Trump has to crypto and the amount of money he's made. And you know what? With the Trump meme coin, I don't think it's unwarranted. I think they should, that should be a consideration. But it would suck if it holds back this bill. And, I think it's really important to move the sector forward, to have a little bit more regulation on some of this stuff, not over-regulation. And one of the things we don't want is CBDCs. Okay, and this is the third bill that's going to be voted on this week. And prevent the Federal Reserve from creating a CBDC. And it says if it passes the House, it will go to the upper chamber for consideration before reaching Trump. And this is a big shift because the last, under Biden, they were pushing for a CBDC. They were testing CBDCs with all of our major banks. A lot of countries have, or at least in late stage development of CBDCs. This would be a big bill if it's passed. So we don't want CBDCs. We do not want CBDCs. Those are basically the government putting the US dollar on chain, being able to track all of your transactions. They could, if they'll say they institute a carbon tax, they could prevent you from spending money on certain things. Most people are not in favor of that. That's why the stablecoin bill hasn't really taken precedent. And there's other countries now, I believe it was South Korea, that was putting a hold on their CBDC, maybe going more towards stablecoins. So we're starting to see this shift. So those are the three bills this week. Hopefully the CBDC one passes. It does sound like the Genius bill with the stablecoin is going to pass. The Clarity Act is, we don't know. It remains to be seen. One other thing, Cindy Lummis.
It is now, and that's why we want to discuss the digital asset tax legislation, because there's a whole lot of parts of this. But again, it's smart stuff because, listen, the more it grows, we want to make sure people are protected with taxes. You want to talk about the most important parts of this?
I do. There's a part that would prevent the double taxation of digital assets. Right now, they're taxed when they're identified, and they're taxed again when they're sold. We don't do that with things like gold and cattle. We tax them when they're sold. And so we need to change that for digital assets. We're also sponsoring legislation that would create a de minimis amount that people could spend. When we're using Bitcoin as a means of exchange, we want to have a de minimis amount that can be used and spent without being subject to taxation. That amount would be about $5,000 per year.
Okay, so it's not exactly what we were hoping for here, but up to what they're looking to do is up to $5,000 a year, so you can use your Bitcoin to make purchases where you wouldn't be taxed on your gains when you make that transaction. Because as it stands today, if you buy Bitcoin and then you go to use it to transact for something, you are subject to capital gains, depending on what price you bought it at versus when you used it to purchase something, the gain you had in that period of time. So they're looking to do $10,000 worth of purchases a year where you wouldn't be taxed. So that's interesting. And I think, the other part of that was, if you're mining crypto, in particular Bitcoin, hopefully others as well, you wouldn't be taxed when you earn it and then again when you sell it. So we'll see what comes from that. But that is, I think, going to be important. The 10,000 isn't what people are hoping for. I think people are hoping for a higher threshold. But regardless, it is pushing things forward. Crypto asset manager Grayscale filed for an IPO. And I thought this is an interesting article. It says that the filing comes after the hugely successful listing last month of Circle. We talked about Circle right before the IPO happened. Hopefully everyone got some exposure to that, but they had a 6x. In fact, it went up to like over $200. I think it's still hovering around there now after IPO at $31. Sounds like Gemini and Bullish have both recently filed to go public as well. And there's a quote here that said, anything that's cryptocurrency related has big investor receptivity. And he said, if I had something in that space, I would say this is the golden window of opportunity to go public. So I think we're going to see a lot more of these crypto-based companies going public here in the coming months because they're trying to get in now while the market's up. And by the way, yes, the market's up. I do expect that we'll continue to run, but be careful. There's people out there that are talking about, oh, you're going to get 100x. The market's going to be up for the next 2 years. Like some of the stuff I'm seeing out there, it's like it's way, way too separated from reality. One other thing I want to mention about Grayscale, though, they released their top 20 projects for Q3. There's some of our projects in there that we cover. We had Helium in there. We had GeoNet in there. Grass, I haven't covered too much, but Grass has done actually really well. But love to see GeoNet and H&T in there making that top 20 list for Grayscale. So, guys, I'm wondering if they're going to have, because they have a lot of different types of funds that they create with different crypto projects. What if they do a DePIN fund? That would be pretty wild. And if there's any indication of what would be included in there, these three I would say would be in there for sure. But speaking of alts, guys, Bitcoin dominance is finally starting to come down a bit. It's finally starting to come down. We really, in order to see a crazy alt season, I mean, look what we had. What do we have back in the last market cycle when things went bananas? Let's go to the daily. Let's go to the daily. Let's see what we had back here. Yeah, we saw it get down to 40% dominance. Wow. I didn't realize it was that low. So, of course, this is the percentage of Bitcoin compared to the entire market cap of crypto. And that's when we had that crazy alt season. So we saw Bitcoin dominance get down to 40%. We are a far cry from that, 65%, 64.5%. And this is, I think the context from earlier that we covered, I think is important here because we're seeing the institutional interest in Bitcoin come in and longer term mindset holders. I don't know that we're going to see Bitcoin dominance drop like we have in the past. I also think we could see, an alt season without necessarily seeing it drop to 40%. I think we will need to see alts gain some dominance, but I don't know that it's going to be completely necessary for us to see that type of a shift. Of course, some of the things that we've talked about there's a lot of the spot ETFs that are coming up for approval. I think XRP, let me pull up XRP, by the way, is having a massive run right now. And I think a lot of that does have to do with the fact that there's an expectation, at least, that they're going to be the ETF is going to be approved soon. So quite a run over the last week. William said, just secured another HT hotspot host. Hell yeah. That's awesome, dude. Love that. These Bitcoin treasury and lending startups could be the spark of the next bear market for crypto. Yeah, I do worry about that too. And then there's the question of like, okay, are the bear markets going to look like the bear markets of the past? Are we still definitively on a 4-year market cycle? I don't know. But for people, you're gonna start seeing these people soon that are talking about we're never gonna have another bear market again. We saw this back in like last December. When you start seeing that stuff, like we're never gonna see another bear market again. Everyone's posting their list of alts. Everyone's taking screenshots. Half of them are probably fake about how much money they made. And the big one, that you have to pay attention to is when you have people that you've been talking to about crypto that don't, have no interest in it. When you start getting calls from those and texts from those people asking you how to buy, that's when it's time to get out. Seriously, though. Seriously, like I started getting those calls last December and January as well. Those are clear calls. So God, I hope we get a bear market. Yeah. That's where the big opportunities are, man. But you got to be diligent about taking profits on the way up if you want to take advantage of that too. So here's the talking about alts some more. Here's the market cap of this is excluding Bitcoin, Ethereum, and stable coins. We talked about this last week, how we had this level here that we had finally broken through, and it looks like we're hoping that holds a support. I don't know. I do think that we have some good times ahead for alts, especially with these bills being passed, with the ETFs likely being launched, but obviously we're having a bit of a pullback. Guys, this is expected when you have these types of massive runs. Over the last week, it doesn't just go up forever. Like you have these types of pullbacks, it's going to happen. And these aren't even massive pullbacks. Let's be real. But what I think is important to look at here is over the last week, what are we seeing from the different DePIN rankings? We're still seeing the big winners are the big caps. 0 to 100 saw an 18.7% move. As you get into the lower caps, we've seen moves, but not nearly like what we've seen in the big caps. And again, this is what we tend to see. Bitcoin runs, then we see the large caps run, and then we see that flow into small caps. And if there's any indication based on what we've seen from this market cycle so far, I don't think we're going to see like what we saw in 2020 and 2021, where everything just ran like crazy. I think it's going to be really important because there's far more projects out there. Now you have things like pump.fun where anyone can just create tokens. There's just too much dilution. So I think it's really, really important to do the research and figure out, unfortunately, what's the narrative. I hate that, but that's just what it is. And then find the real projects. And that's what, obviously we try to do every day. I do want to look at my favorites list though. And these are obviously not all the projects I cover. These are all the ones that are in the top 1,000. Because I can't go beyond that on this platform. But you see on the week, we have had a big push on DePIN. So you have Arweave. I've covered so much. I've covered all these projects a lot, guys. Like over the last couple of years, but in particular, last 7 months when market's been down, we've really, really dug in on these. That said, we're seeing a pullback today. Again, when you see something pump 30%, yeah, you're going to have a correction. That's just what happens. The other thing to look at are search terms for Bitcoin. So if this is actually a really good indicator. If you guys remember, last March of 2024, things peaked. Okay, we saw the same thing right around Thanksgiving. Market 3 weeks later peaked. So this is a really good indicator of when market's getting overheated. We haven't seen it run up quite yet. If we look at on a global scale, we see the same trends, guys. peaked in March, peaked again right around Thanksgiving. So you gotta keep an eye on these things. And then we're starting to charge back up. So that's good to see. Definitely good to see. But you got to be careful out there. And here's another one, guys. This is the unfortunate thing with crypto and especially these freaking meme coins. This guy, Crypto Beast, he had a huge following and he rug pulled people. He deleted all these on the this alt project and deleted his account today. Okay. You saw what happened. Let me show you. This thing completely rugged. And this is what people need to be aware of. These meme coins and these big accounts, they will extract money. This thing was trading like the hundreds of millions, I believe, and then it dropped. So where's it at right now? 5.4 million. Like, look at that. Look at that rug. You know, it sucks because this is the stuff that's just pulling liquidity from the rest of the market. You also had the pump.fun token go live today. Look, I mean, talk about extracting value. $335 million in 24-hour trading volume, $5.29 billion in market cap. It's insane. Drives me crazy, guys. Like this drives me crazy. God, so stupid. Anyway, that's not to say, and I do want to say this. The way I'm looking at these market cycles now, and we talked about this last week, but I think these DePIN projects, a lot of them are building, a lot of them are doing really well. I think we're already starting to see a bit of a rotation in there. But when you see the fear and greed index start to peak up, when you see the search terms start to peak up, you start seeing all these warning signs and the market's getting overheated. It's really, really important to take profits. And what I've seen every time, and I saw it this market cycle in January, I saw it again in the last market cycle, and that was like 2021 or 2022, I want to say. Generally, and what I've done is I've like literally set up separate wallets to send USDC into that. I'm not going to look to rotate in other projects while the market's overheated, just to have sitting there to be patient. Okay. Some of the best investors do nothing for a long period of time. Patience. And then there's, a small percentage of my portfolio, and this has worked really well for me, chasing before that blow off top, chasing some of the narratives. I did that with a meme coin called Community Coin. Did a 50x in like a week. Okay. And it's really important, like at the very tail end of those things, know like, hey, I'm willing to take a small percentage of my portfolio to go after these narratives. I did it with NFTs in the last market cycle. I flipped an NFT, I think, in 2021, right at the end for like 60K. I think Comcoin got, my position did a 50X. I mean, it was a really good return. But you got to remember at the very end, like, they can flip at any time. The blow off top can happen, and that's money that can just go away. So, again, I'm positioning myself into these DePIN projects. I think you're going to do really well. But the market's going to get overheated. They're going to get overheated. There's no doubt about it. And then I'm looking to look at, once that greed hits like 90 or above, that month or two after that, I'm looking to chase narratives, take profits, siphon them out, and then rotate into other narratives. The other thing that people get really caught up in, and I have myself, is when the market's overheated, you have to be okay with not hitting on everything. You're going to see projects, even ones that you've researched, that you're like, oh man, I meant to get a position in that. It starts to run. You have to be okay with just leaving it. If it's a really good project, it's going to be there in the bear market. The game of rotating profits from one project into another project, and just timing it perfectly, good luck. That is a losing strategy. And that is one that I've tried to do in the past. And I can tell you, it's not a winning strategy, guys. Bottom line. So be okay with missing out on some things. Be in your conviction plays, have a plan in place, and manage it, man. That's the name of the game. And I can't tell you what that is. I mean, my strategy is going to be different than everyone else's because we're going to have different targets in mind. We have different risk tolerances. You got to figure that out for yourself, what that looks like. MXC was my biggest regret. Man, I bought one of those MXC miners. Fortunately, I cashed it out. I think it was like $2,500 miner. I think I sold it like $4,000 worth of tokens, so I ended out ahead. But that was such a scam. That thing was such a scam. All right, and don't get me wrong, guys. I've had plenty of losses as well. Like not all wins. That's for sure. That's the thing though. You got to learn. Man, from the mistakes. That's the biggest learning experience. The mistakes you make, and sometimes they're pretty painful. I've had some painful ones for sure. But as long as you don't make the same mistake twice and you learn from it, you're good to go. All right, so let's talk about DePIN search terms. So DePIN in particular, very interesting stuff. We saw the same trends where things started to move up in 2024. We saw the same thing, right when the market topped December into January, we saw it. Again, I think the peak happened like right around December, like 14th. We haven't started to see it tick back up again yet. So that's worldwide. What about United States? I'm sure it's very similar looking on the interest there, but U.S. same thing. We're starting to see a little bit of a tick up here. So DePIN, the time has not come yet, but I do believe it is coming. Fear and Greed Index 74. This is the one I follow. There's several of them out there. This one, to me, I've looked at all of them. This one's the most strongly correlated with market tops and bottoms. We did hit 79 the other day. So you start getting into those 80s and the 90s, things are starting to get a little overheated. Obviously, we haven't seen things run quite like we had hoped, but I think it's going to come. William said, "So excited for DABA network token." Me too, man. If you all, by the way, I just put out a tweet earlier. I don't know if you guys were on their town hall last week. I posted this last night, but if you guys want to know the newest with what's going on with DABA, I posted this last night and went through all the highlights of their TGE and everything. So let me show you this. Here you go. I'll just retweet it again right now so you guys can easily find it at the top of my profile there. But I posted it pretty late last night. But talks about how Masari highlighted DABA, how they're adding LCOs, they're getting more installations going. They have an enterprise deal that bought 5,000 new hotspots, and they updated their TGE window, and they're using Bonk for their decks. So for those DABA people out there, check out that. It's like a 3-minute video. So I go through all the highlights of the town hall. All right. What other news we got here? Oh, A16Z talked about their top use cases for DePIN. So you're starting to see it get some attention, guys. Energy, haven't really done much on the energy front. I know there's some good projects out there. I need to dig in a little bit more because I have a background in solar, but for me, I've been mostly looking at the telecom side of things. We've covered them. We've covered, Helium obviously is the top one. You got Carrier One launching their token soon. That one, don't sleep on that project, guys. That's a good one. You got XNet out there. I know there's a lot of people that like World Mobile. Transportation in particularly, we're talking about Hive Mapper, about Demo. I know it's a little bit of a sore subject for some people. I'm going to put out a Demo video about my thoughts on that and why I still think the token can do well. And then Rover, which again, I'm going to post that interview with their team. I got it all edited and everything. I'm just waiting for the final green light from them, and I'm going to get that posted hopefully today or tomorrow. Then AI, you got the GPU clusters. There's so many players in AI right now in DePIN that are so promising. So I would highly recommend checking out that sector. You got robotics, of course. Rover's going to play into that. You've got GeoNet's going to play into the robotics side, in particular, getting really precise location data. And then healthcare. I haven't looked too much into the healthcare side of things. You do have Dynex, and I know that you're able to, they got pharmaceutical companies running modeling through Dynex. So, yeah, guys, there's a lot going on in DePIN right now. A lot of really promising stuff. I was this weekend. I was on a golf trip in Wisconsin. I was with some people, some crypto people. A lot weren't crypto people, but a couple of them are pretty big investors. and they've got some deep pockets, and they have some crypto exposure. But when I talk to them about DePIN, they're like pretty blown away by what's happening there. Let's see what else we got here. So Streamer TV, guys, I'm going to start adding Streamer TV to my streams. So I've been streaming to, Rumble. I added because YouTube's been deplatforming people. So the more I can diversify, the better. Sometimes on Facebook, sometimes on X, obviously, every time, and then YouTube. And I'm going to start going to Streamer TV. I think we need to start utilizing these projects. So I just got to make sure that my audio and everything flows through properly. All right. In other news, Silencio is now on base. I think you're going to see more and more projects do this. GeoNet's done it. A lot of projects have done it where you're going to see them across multiple chains. And it makes sense. I think it makes sense. It's more accessible that way. It also opens them up to more capital, more liquidity. That's a good thing. Rover is giving away 5 Tarantula X units. So go to their page and you can get, submit for the Tarantula X. So that's one of their hardware units. You start earning some Rover token. You got HiveMapper. That's kind of cool. They're doing these new, I think it's like weekly. They're posting a picture, and then if you go and map it, you get a bonus. So keep an eye on that. You never know. I'd be like, oh my God, that's my house. Go out there and earn $1,250, honey. Unlikely, but you never know. And then let's see, Fractals. I put out a video today. I've highlighted them. We're going to have them on as a special guest on the space tomorrow. And that's actually the next thing I want to talk about here is we've got a lot of spaces, guys, coming up this week. Number one, William will be on there with me. Tomorrow at 11 a.m., we have our weekly DePIN Connected space. So we're going to have managed appointments with Fractals on there as a special guest. So if you can, definitely check that out. Then I've got the AMA tomorrow with Ariel at 2 p.m. These are Central Standard Time, by the way, CST. So 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. The Q3 AMA for HiveMapper. So I'm hosting that with Ariel. We got a lot of people that are submitted for that. So a lot of questions we're going to be asking there. We're going to be covering updates on the shipments of bees. We're going to press them a little bit on the fleet tools. They have had some issues with the bee rewards. They did an airdrop for that. We're going to talk about what led to that and what they did to what they're doing to fix it. They also have multiple MIPs. Someone just asked about that. Sidecam mapping final date been set. It did pass. The MIP did pass. I'm not sure. We'll ask him when that's going to go into effect tomorrow. What do you say here? Be nice. I will move my HTC S to the side when I get the B. Well, they're getting rid of side mapping. So you'll have to move that to another person or sell it, unfortunately. But it was not driving revenue. And I guess the imagery just wasn't high value enough. Another space. This is going to be on Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm getting on this one as well. What does the future of Web3 look like? Suburban crypto is going to be on there too. So check that out if you can. So again, we've got tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central, 2 p.m. For HiveMapper, and then this one. And then we've got, this is Liz. This is who is hosting that. So make sure to give her a follow if you don't already. So I'll be on that space. And then we got the Wolf Crypto spaces that I'm on every week. So Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, so 2 p.m. Central time. We've got the Daba Network space. So I'm on there pretty much every week. Talk about different DePIN topics. And then also on Wednesday, by the way, I'm looking to have Deep Founder on my live stream, Nate Harper. We're going to be talking about the DIN NFTs that are coming up. So Nate's going to come on the live stream. We'll be discussing all things on the Deep Network, so that'll be fun. And then Thursday, I've got a space I'm joining. And that is at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, of course. That's the Flux space. The Flux made some big changes last week, but we always have a great discussion on there. So definitely, man, there's a lot. I'm in a lot of spaces this week. Very, very busy week. Another one I would say is Chris was up there with Hobbyist Miner on. Check that video out. They got in. They talked about DePIN stuff. So Hobbyist, he's got a big following. That's awesome to see Chris get on there. Let's see here. He said, "Are there any open forum streams on YouTube for us to discuss our currently running projects?" I mean, always open to have community members on the stream. If you all want to discuss DePIN, like, are you saying that you want to talk about some of the stuff that you're running and just have an open discussion about it? I'd be down for that, man. Yeah, if there's community members that want to get on the live stream, man, like or in the space. Either way, I bring you on the space too. I think it's good. I think the more we can all collaborate, the better. And then let's see. Oh, I'll talk about this. So I've been putting out a lot of videos. I did one on fractals. And let's see. I'll touch on some of the videos I'm working on right now too. So the rover interview should be posted today or tomorrow. That's a solid project worth looking at. I had my DePIN week 2 weeks ago. I'm putting together a video because I covered it on multiple days. I'm putting together a video that puts it all together, shortening it up a little bit. So on some of the projects, hitting the major points. But that'll be a really extensive overview of every project I've covered, including some of the newer projects. So that'll be really good. I'm doing one on the Tangent wallets, which are by far my favorite wallet. So I'm going to talk about the features of that hardware wallet. And let's see what else. I'm going to do one on Demo and talk about my thoughts on the subscription model, whether or not I would build out a fleet today, and what I think about the token. Make a case for why I think the token still could do well and rebound. Do I have anything else? A couple of other special guests I'm looking to bring on my spaces in the coming weeks. One's from Althea Network. They are using stable coins in the beginning, in the early stages, as opposed to just the network tokens to get participation. And then they're planning on launching a token. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to bring on Ken from Tashi Network. And they are building out compute for really a big focus on the gaming sector. Because a lot of these games, man, like, a lot of them end up shutting down because the server costs are so high. So they're doing something to address that. It's like a $45 billion industry. So I like what Tashi's doing. So we're going to bring Ken on too, to the space as a special guest. So got a lot of stuff coming up, guys. Got a lot of stuff. We're dialing in, and I think the timing is perfect to do so with everything going on in the market. What do you say? I think people could share their success failures harder. I think you're right. I talked to my boy Daniel about that. I've been trying to get him on. He's been super busy. But I would love to do a deployer episode, bring some people on, talk about what projects they're working with, because there's a lot of people that are really interested in the deployment side, and I think they want to hear from people that have gone through it. So I think that's a really, really good idea. Shoot me a message on X if you would, so we can connect on there. We can talk about setting something up for that. He said Rover is... I actually did take a position in Rover the other day, because we're sitting at... Here's the thing about Rover. Okay. So Rover right now, if you look at the circulating supply, and this is, again, I talked about this the other day, it's giving me like early Hive Mapper vibes. And here's why. The token unlocks to like the employees and investors haven't started going out yet. Haven't started unlocking yet. So you have a really low float. The circulating supply is super low right now. And because of that, the market cap's 1.19 million. Now, if the market does take off like we're hoping, if we do have like an alt season here, I do think that Rover could do some multiples. Now, in the long run, you have to realize that there's going to be a lot of dilution. This is the same thing we saw with Hive Mapper, guys. Like, we saw it pump up with the Coinbase listing to like 34 cents. obviously we've seen dilution. It's gotten beaten down by market conditions. I think High Mapper will bounce back, but like that type of move, like a 30x, like we saw in a month, that's hard to do when you have that many tokens in circulation. But like for a Rover, that's the type of move that you can see because there's such few tokens in circulation. And that is like, these are the projects you want to look at. And it's like kind of this unique timing scenario where it could come together for it, where it's just early stages and the market could pop at the right time. The more I'm going to probably add more now that I talked about it more, but seriously, like those are the opportunities you really need to keep an eye on. Now it's also important to like touch grass again. I talk about this a lot, but it's like, with the stuff going on in the economy and like with the Japan, bond situation, with the tariffs, we don't know what's going to happen in 2 weeks, right? Like the market is not pricing in a lot of this risk. And these are, I wouldn't even call them necessarily black swan events because they're visible, but those are things that can come into play. So I think we need to be really, when you get really bullish, you hit that stage where everyone's a genius and everyone, every project's green, everyone's like the best investor in the world. Like, keep the risks in mind and, ask yourself, so this amount of money I'm looking at in my wallet, what type of difference can this make in my life? And if it drops by 90% in the next, 2-3 weeks, am I going to be okay with that? Okay. Start thinking about this stuff, because like there's nothing worse than round tripping bags. I think we've all done it. Okay. Huh. All right, y'all. Well, that's what I got for the stream today. I appreciate you all. I plan on being on every day this week, so there'll be plenty to talk about. And looking forward to doing that deployment episode. I think it'd be good. I would hopefully get on a couple people, talk about some projects, talk about what it's like to be a deployer. What are the positives, the negatives, the things to think about that maybe people aren't thinking about? And obviously there's a lot of upside there too. So, all right, guys. Hope you all have a fantastic day. Let me make sure I got my outro on here because I did not have my intro video set up. Here we go. Have a wonderful day, guys. Get outside, get some sunlight. I will see y'all tomorrow.